Marcus Taylor stood in the small kitchen of Blue Ridge Grill, a cozy Southern-style restaurant nestled in Savannah, Georgia. His strong hands worked with precision as he prepared a plate of shrimp and grits, the restaurant's signature dish. The comforting aroma of spices filled the air, blending perfectly with the hum of a busy kitchen. Though modest in size, this space was where Marcus felt most alive, a place where creativity met skill, and flavors spoke louder than words. "Marcus, Table 3 sent their compliments again," called Maya, a bright-eyed line cook in her 20s. She held up a plate that was scraped clean. "They said it was the best meal they've ever had." Marcus gave her a warm smile, his deep brown eyes crinkling at the corners. "That's the magic of fresh ingredients and a little soul," he replied. "But don't forget, it's a team effort. Every plate out there is a reflection of all of us." As Marcus wiped his hands on a towel, he glanced at the clock. The dinner rush was starting, and the orders would soon be piling up. Yet, he didn't mind. This was what he loved. A chance to create something special for each person who walked through the door. But beyond the satisfaction of tonight's service, Marcus's thoughts were often consumed by a bigger dream. He imagined a space of his own, where every detail, from the menu to the ambiance, reflected his journey. A place that celebrated the rich culinary traditions of his family and community while blending them with modern innovations. He could already picture the laughter of diners, the clinking of glasses, and the unmistakable sound of happiness sparked by his food. "Dreaming again?" teased Maya as she caught him staring off into the distance. Marcus chuckled, shaking his head. "Just planning ahead. You know, one day it's going to happen." Before Maya could respond, the double doors swung open, and in walked Mr. Langford, the new head chef. He was a tall, stern-looking man with a neatly trimmed beard and piercing blue eyes that scanned the kitchen like a hawk. Dressed in a pristine white chef's coat, he exuded authority, though his air of professionalism carried a faint chill. The staff instinctively straightened, their chatter fading into silence. Marcus wiped his hands again and stepped forward, extending a hand. "Mr. Langford, welcome. I'm Marcus Taylor. It's a pleasure to meet you." Mr. Langford glanced briefly at Marcus's hand before turning his attention to the plate in front of him. "What's this?" he asked, his voice clipped. Marcus lowered his hand but maintained his polite demeanor. "That's our shrimp and grits, a house specialty. Would you like to try it?" Langford picked up a fork, poked at the dish, and took a single bite. His expression didn't change. Not bad," he said, though his tone lacked enthusiasm. "But we'll be making some changes to the menu. This comfort food isn't exactly what I have in mind for the Blue Ridge Grill moving forward." The words hung in the air like a thick fog. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he forced a smile. "I'd be happy to hear your ideas, sir." Langford didn't respond. Instead, he addressed the rest of the staff. "Let's focus on elevating this place to something more sophisticated. Classic techniques, precise plating, and no shortcuts. That's what will set us apart." As Langford strode out of the kitchen, the silence was deafening. Marcus could feel the unease ripple through the team. Maya leaned closer to him, whispering, "What does he mean by elevating?" "We're already doing great." Marcus didn't answer immediately. His eyes lingered on the plate of shrimp and grits that Langford had dismissed so easily. It was more than just a dish to Marcus. It was a connection to his heritage, his family, and the traditions that had shaped him as a chef. "He's the boss now," Marcus finally said, though the words tasted bitter. In the weeks that followed, Langford's presence changed the atmosphere of the Blue Ridge Grill. The once lively kitchen grew tense. Marcus noticed subtle shifts in the schedule. He was assigned fewer evening shifts and more prep work during off-peak hours. His suggestions during menu planning meetings were brushed aside, and the dishes he'd spent years perfecting were replaced by ones that felt cold and impersonal. One evening, as Marcus worked on a batch of house-made sauces, he overheard Langford talking to a sous chef. "We need to move away from this overly ethnic style," Langford said, his voice low but sharp. "It's not the image I want for this place." The words hit Marcus like a slap. He paused, his hands trembling slightly as he stirred the pot in front of him. He knew exactly what Langford was implying, and it wasn't just about the food. Later that night, as the kitchen staff cleaned up, Maya approached Marcus. "Hey, are you okay?" she asked, concern etched on her face. Marcus forced a small smile. "I'm fine. Just tired, that's all." Maya frowned. "It's not just me, Marcus. Everyone can see how Langford's treating you. It's not right." Marcus sighed, leaning against the counter. "I can't let it get to me. I've worked too hard to let someone like him push me out." "But why stay if he doesn't respect you?" Maya pressed. "Because this isn't just a job for me," Marcus said quietly. "This is my craft, my passion, and I won't let him take that from me." Despite Marcus's determination, Langford's hostility became harder to ignore. During a particularly busy Friday night, Marcus presented a new dish he'd been working on, a smoked brisket with a blackberry glaze that had the entire staff raving. But when Langford saw it, his expression turned sour. "This isn't fine dining," Langford snapped. "This is barbecue. What's next? Baked beans on the side?" "It's not just barbecue," Marcus replied, keeping his tone steady. "It's about combining bold flavors with refinement. The guests loved it." Langford's eyes narrowed. "We serve elevated cuisine here, not backyard cookout fare. Don't make it again." Marcus clenched his fists, swallowing the retort that burned on his tongue. He could feel the eyes of his colleagues on him, their silent support offering little comfort. That night, Marcus returned home feeling defeated. As he stepped into the small apartment he shared with his wife, Layla, the smell of roasted chicken greeted him. Layla appeared in the doorway, her eyes immediately noticing the weariness etched on Marcus's face. "Rough day?" she asked softly. Marcus nodded, sinking into a chair at the dining table. "It's Langford. He's making it impossible." Layla placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You've done everything you can to prove yourself, Marcus. Maybe it's time to think about what's next." "What's next?" Marcus repeated bitterly. "This kitchen is all I have." "No," Layla said firmly. "It's not. You have your talent, your passion, and your vision. Don't let him make you forget that." Marcus looked up at his wife, her unwavering belief in him sparking a glimmer of hope. "You think I should leave?" he asked. "I think you deserve better," Layla replied. "And I think it's time the world saw what you're really capable of." In the days that followed, Marcus wrestled with Layla's words. Could he really walk away from the kitchen he had worked so hard to be part of? Every fiber of his being told him to fight, to prove himself. But each shift brought new humiliations. Langford's disdain wasn't just professional, it felt personal. Subtle comments, dismissive glances, and outright rejection of Marcus's contributions wore him down. The breaking point came one evening during the dinner rush. The restaurant was packed, and the kitchen was running like a well-oiled machine despite the growing tension. Marcus had been tasked with preparing a classic dish, a coq au vin. But he couldn't resist adding his signature touch, a hint of smoked paprika and a garnish of fresh thyme. When Langford saw the plate, his face darkened. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the noise of the kitchen. "It's coq au vin, sir," Marcus replied evenly, with a slight twist to enhance the flavor. Langford sneered, holding up the plate as if it were contaminated. "This is not coq au vin. It's a bastardization. Do you even understand what we're trying to achieve here?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "Sir, I've been making this dish for years. It's one of our most popular—" "I don't care," Langford interrupted, his voice rising. The kitchen staff froze, the sound of knives and pans ceasing as all eyes turned to the confrontation. "This is my kitchen and we do things my way. If you can't follow instructions, you have no place here." Marcus felt a hot flush of anger, but he kept his voice calm. "Respectfully, Mr. Langford, this isn't just your kitchen. It's our kitchen, the team's kitchen. And our customers love this dish." Langford slammed the plate onto the counter, causing sauce to splatter. "Enough. You're fired. Pack your things and get out." The words hit Marcus like a blow to the chest. Around him, the staff exchanged uneasy glances, but no one spoke up. He scanned their faces, searching for even a flicker of support, but the fear of Langford's wrath kept them silent. Without a word, Marcus untied his apron and placed it on the counter. He walked to his locker, his movements slow and deliberate, as if in a trance. As he gathered his belongings, he glanced at the kitchen one last time. It was a place that had once been his sanctuary, now tainted by betrayal and prejudice. As Marcus pushed open the heavy door and stepped into the cool night air, he felt an overwhelming sense of loss. But beneath the pain, there was a flicker of something else, a determination he couldn't quite name. Over the next few weeks, Marcus searched tirelessly for another job. He visited every restaurant in Savannah, from trendy downtown spots to mom-and-pop diners. But the rejections piled up. Some managers told him he was overqualified, while others offered polite but vague excuses. Marcus began to suspect that Langford's influence and his reputation for being difficult had followed him. "Maybe I'm not cut out for this anymore," Marcus admitted one evening as he sat at the kitchen table with Layla. Layla shook her head firmly. "Don't say that. You're one of the most talented chefs I've ever known. If these people can't see that, it's their loss." Marcus sighed, running a hand over his face. "Talent doesn't pay the bills." Layla reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. "You don't need their validation, Marcus. You have everything you need to create something on your own." Marcus wanted to believe her, but the sting of rejection and the weight of his growing doubts were hard to shake. One afternoon, while walking through the neighborhood, Marcus noticed a faded help wanted sign in the window of a small diner. The place was humble, with peeling paint and a neon sign that flickered faintly. It wasn't the kind of place he had envisioned for himself, but desperation pushed him through the door. Behind the counter stood Betty, the diner's owner, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a warm smile. She glanced at Marcus's resume, her eyebrows raising slightly. "You're overqualified for this place," she said, folding the paper, "but if you're willing to get your hands dirty, the job's yours." Marcus nodded. "I'll take it." The work was a far cry from the fine dining kitchens Marcus was used to. Instead of foie gras and truffle oil, he prepared burgers, scrambled eggs, and meatloaf. Yet he approached each task with the same care and dedication he had always given to his craft. "Best pancakes I've had in years," one regular said one morning, giving Marcus a thumbs up. Despite the praise, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was meant for more. During his breaks, he scribbled recipe ideas in a notebook, experimenting with sauces and spice blends whenever he had a spare moment. His passion for cooking hadn't dimmed, it was simply waiting for the right spark. That spark came one afternoon when a woman named Claire, the director of a local community center, walked into the diner. "Excuse me," she said, approaching Marcus as he cleaned the counter. "Are you Marcus Taylor?" Marcus frowned slightly, unsure how she knew him. "Yes, I am. Can I help you?" Claire smiled warmly. "I've heard about your cooking. We're hosting a charity cook-off to support local youth programs, and we'd love for you to participate." Marcus hesitated. "I'm not sure. I haven't been in a real competition for a while." "Exactly why you should do it," Claire said. "We could really use your skills, and it's a chance to remind people of your talent." That evening, Marcus told Layla about the invitation. "What if I can't do it?" he asked. "What if I've lost my touch?" Layla placed a hand on his shoulder, her gaze steady. "You haven't lost anything, Marcus. This is your chance to prove that. Not just to others, but to yourself." In the weeks leading up to the event, Marcus threw himself into preparation. He spent late nights in their small kitchen, experimenting with ingredients and refining his dish. He wanted something that honored his roots while showcasing his creativity, a reflection of his journey. When the day of the cook-off arrived, Marcus stood in the bustling event hall surrounded by other chefs. The energy was electric, but Marcus felt a calm confidence settle over him. As he worked, the familiar rhythm of the kitchen took over. His dish, A smoked catfish with sweet potato hash and a tangy citrus glaze was an instant hit. Judges marveled at the bold yet harmonious flavors, and the crowd buzzed with excitement. Near the end of the event, a well-dressed woman approached Marcus's station. "Mr. Taylor," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Evelyn Hart, a food critic and restaurant consultant. Your dish today was extraordinary." Marcus shook her hand, stunned. "Thank you, ma'am. That means a lot." Evelyn's smile widened. "Have you ever considered opening your own restaurant? Because with your talent, I believe you could create something truly remarkable." Marcus's heart raced. "I've dreamed of it," he admitted, "but I've never had the resources." Evelyn's eyes gleamed. "Let's change that. I'd like to help you make it happen." As Marcus returned home that night, his mind swirled with possibilities. For the first time in months, he felt the weight of his struggles begin to lift. Sitting across from Layla at their kitchen table, he couldn't stop smiling. "You were right," he told her. "This is just the beginning." The next few weeks felt like a whirlwind for Marcus. True to her word, Evelyn Hart wasted no time in putting plans into motion. She introduced Marcus to investors, connected him with real estate agents, and brought him into meetings with designers and architects who could help shape his vision. It was an entirely new world for Marcus, and though it was overwhelming at times, it also reignited a fire within him. At home, Marcus and Layla spent long nights sketching ideas for the restaurant. Marcus envisioned a space that wasn't just a dining experience, but a celebration of flavor, culture, and community. "What do you think of calling it the gathering table?" Marcus asked one evening. "I want it to feel like a place where people come together, like a family dinner." Layla smiled. "It's perfect, Marcus. That's exactly what you've always done, brought people together through your food." As plans for the restaurant began to take shape, Marcus also started assembling a team. He reached out to former colleagues, chefs, and cooks he had worked with over the years, people who shared his passion for food and his dedication to excellence. One of the first to join was Maya, who had left the Blue Ridge Grill shortly after Marcus's firing. "I couldn't stay there after what Langford did to you," she said when Marcus offered her a sous chef position. "I'm in, 100%. Marcus also hired Tom, a pastry chef he'd worked with years ago, and Carlos, a talented young line cook who reminded Marcus of himself in his early days. Together, they began testing recipes, refining techniques, and building a menu that would tell Marcus's story. Dishes inspired by his family's southern roots, blended with the bold, creative flavors he had mastered over the years. Despite the progress, there were challenges. Securing funding required several nerve-wracking presentations to investors, and more than one deal fell through. Some doubted whether a concept rooted in Southern and cultural fusion would resonate with the upscale dining crowd. Evelyn, however, remained a constant source of encouragement. "Don't let them shake your confidence, Marcus," she told him after a particularly tough meeting. "They'll come around. The right people always do." Layla was equally supportive, often reminding Marcus of how far he'd already come. "This isn't just about opening a restaurant," she said one night as they reviewed budget spreadsheets. "It's about reclaiming your place in the world, and no one can take that from you." Finally, after months of planning, preparation, and hard work, the day of the grand opening arrived. Marcus stood outside the gathering table, taking in the sight of the restaurant he had dreamed of for so long. The building was warm and inviting, with large windows that glowed softly in the evening light. Inside, the tables were set with care, and the air buzzed with excitement as the staff made final preparations. "Are you ready?" Layla asked, slipping her hand into Marcus's. He exhaled slowly, a mix of nerves and pride washing over him. "I've never been more ready." The opening night was a resounding success. The dining room was packed with guests, including friends, family, food critics, and local influencers. Marcus moved through the kitchen with ease, overseeing every dish that left the pass. Each plate told a story, his story, and the guests couldn't get enough. "Chef Marcus, this gumbo is phenomenal," one diner said, stopping Marcus as he passed their table. "It's unlike anything I've ever tasted." Marcus smiled. "Thank you. That recipe is inspired by my grandmother. She always said food should be an expression of love." In the kitchen, Maya and Carlos worked side by side, the team moving like a well-choreographed dance. Tom's desserts, like his sweet potato creme brulee, were the perfect finale to a night of culinary excellence. As the last guests trickled out, Marcus gathered the staff in the dining room. "I just want to say thank you," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "This isn't just my dream, it's ours. And tonight, we proved what we're capable of." The room erupted in applause and cheers. For the first time in months, Marcus felt truly at peace. In the weeks that followed, the gathering table quickly became one of Savannah's most talked-about dining destinations. Evelyn wrote a glowing review for a prominent food magazine, calling it a love letter to Southern cuisine, reimagined with creativity and heart. More importantly, the restaurant became a place where Marcus's vision came to life, a space where people of all backgrounds felt welcome, connected, and inspired. Marcus often walked through the dining room, chatting with guests and watching as they savored each bite. One evening, as Marcus cleaned up after a busy night, he noticed a familiar figure standing in the doorway. Langford. Dressed in a sharp suit, his expression was unreadable as he stepped into the restaurant. "Chef Taylor," Langford said, his tone formal. "This place, it's impressive." Marcus straightened, meeting Langford's gaze. "Thank you," he said evenly. Langford hesitated, glancing around the restaurant. "I may have underestimated you. He paused, clearly uncomfortable. "Congratulations on your success." Marcus studied him for a moment before nodding. "Thank you. It means a lot." As Langford left, Marcus felt no bitterness, only a sense of closure. The success of the gathering table spoke for itself. He didn't need Langford's approval. He never had. Later that night, as Marcus locked up, Layla joined him outside. "You're quiet," she said, slipping her arm through his. "Just thinking," Marcus replied, gazing at the sign above the door. "About how far we've come." Layla smiled. "And about where we're going next?" Marcus chuckled. "Exactly." As they walked home under the stars, Marcus felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the success he'd achieved, but for the people who had believed in him when it mattered most. Because in the end, it wasn't just about the food. It was about resilience, community, and the unwavering belief that no matter how many times life tried to knock you down, you could always rise again. As the weeks rolled on, Marcus's vision for Roots and Wings blossomed into a thriving reality. The restaurant became more than just a dining establishment. It was a community hub. Local artists displayed their work on the walls, and Marcus often hosted special events like cooking classes and charity dinners, bringing people from all walks of life together under one roof. One evening, Marcus received an unexpected visitor. Madame Beaumont, one of his earliest supporters from Le Grand Epicurean, stepped into Roots and Wings. Her sophisticated demeanor hadn't changed, but her eyes sparkled with excitement as she looked around. "Marcus," she exclaimed, arms outstretched. "This place is magnificent. I had to see it for myself." Marcus smiled, guiding her to a table near the window. "Madame Beaumont, it's so good to see you. What can I get you tonight?" "I trust you, my dear. Bring me whatever dish you think represents your heart," she replied warmly. Marcus returned to the kitchen and prepared his signature dish, smoked catfish atop sweet potato risotto with a tangy collard green sauce. As Madame Beaumont tasted it, her expression softened. "This," she said, dabbing her lips with a napkin, "is not just food. This is art. This is love. You've created something truly extraordinary." Her words resonated deeply with Marcus, reaffirming that his journey had been worth every struggle. Meanwhile, the impact of Marcus's success continued to ripple through Savannah's culinary scene. Young chefs from underrepresented communities began to see Marcus as a beacon of hope. Many reached out to him, seeking mentorship or simply to thank him for inspiring them to pursue their dreams. One day, Marcus received a handwritten letter from a high school student named Riley. "Dear Chef Marcus," the letter began, "I've always loved cooking, but I didn't think someone like me could ever make it in this industry. Then I heard your story. You showed me that anything is possible if you work hard and stay true to yourself. Thank you for giving people like me hope." The letter brought tears to Marcus's eyes. He reached out to Riley, inviting the aspiring chef to spend a day at Roots and Wings. Watching Riley's awe and excitement as they worked together reminded Marcus of his younger self, hungry for opportunity. "I believe in you, Riley," Marcus said as they wrapped up the day. "Keep pushing forward. Your voice and your flavors matter." Across town, Le Grand Epicurean had transformed into a vibrant testament to second chances. The collaborative leadership of Marcus and Mr. Huxley had created a space where innovation thrived, and the restaurant's reputation was soaring once again. One night, Marcus and Mr. Huxley sat at a corner table after service, sipping coffee and reflecting on how far they had come. "Do you remember the first time we clashed over a dish?" Marcus asked with a chuckle. Mr. Huxley smirked. "How could I forget? I was stubborn as a mule." "And now you're suggesting fusion dishes," Marcus teased, grinning. Mr. Huxley laughed, shaking his head. "Life has a way of humbling us, doesn't it? I've learned more from you than I ever expected. Thank you for not giving up on me." Marcus nodded, the sincerity in Mr. Huxley's words filling him with gratitude. "And thank you for being willing to grow. That's what it's all about. Learning, evolving, and making things better for those who come after us." As Marcus balanced the demands of running 2 successful restaurants, he began to dream even bigger. Angela noticed him sketching late at night, jotting down ideas in his notebook. "What's next, Marcus?" she asked, her tone playful but curious. "I've been thinking," he said, his eyes alight with excitement. "What if we create a culinary school, a place where anyone, regardless of background, can learn the art of cooking?" Angela's face lit up. "Marcus, that's brilliant. Imagine the lives you could change." Inspired by the idea, Marcus began laying the groundwork for the school. He envisioned a space where students could learn not just technical skills, but also the importance of storytelling through food. "We'll call it the Roots and Wings Academy," he told Angela one evening. "Because just like the restaurant, it's about honoring where you come from while empowering you to soar." Months later, Marcus stood outside the newly completed building for the Roots and Wings Academy. The sleek yet welcoming space combined modern architecture with elements of cultural significance, a tribute to the culinary traditions that inspired Marcus's journey. A large mural on the side of the building depicted a pair of wings rising from the roots of a tree, a powerful symbol of growth and possibility. Inside, the academy buzzed with energy as the first group of students prepared for their orientation. Young chefs from all walks of life filled the kitchen stations, their eyes wide with excitement as they took in the top-of-the-line equipment and vibrant decor. Marcus addressed them with his usual warmth and humility. "Welcome to Roots and Wings Academy," he began, his voice steady but emotional. "This is more than a school. It's a space where you can explore your creativity, embrace your heritage, and discover the power of your own unique voice. Every dish you create will tell a story, and I can't wait to see the stories you'll share with the world." The academy wasn't just about technical skills. Marcus had designed the curriculum to include lessons on cultural appreciation and the history behind different cuisines. He partnered with local chefs and food historians to teach students about the rich traditions of soul food, Creole cooking, and other global flavors. He also made sure the students learned about perseverance, leadership, and the importance of building supportive teams. One day, Marcus invited Mr. Huxley to lead a class on classic French techniques. The older chef hesitated at first, unsure of how the students would receive him. "They're here to learn from you, Chef Huxley," Marcus assured him, "and your knowledge is invaluable." To Mr. Huxley's surprise, the students hung on his every word, eagerly taking notes as he demonstrated the perfect way to prepare a beurre blanc. By the end of the session, they erupted into applause, and Mr. Huxley's face broke into a genuine smile. "Thank you for this, Marcus," he said afterward. "You've given me a chance to leave a meaningful legacy." Among the Academy's first class of students was Riley, the high schooler who had written to Marcus months earlier. Shy but determined, Riley struggled with self-doubt in the beginning. But under Marcus's mentorship, the young chef began to shine. During a practice session for a class showcase, Riley presented a dish inspired by their grandmother's cooking. A tamarind-glazed roast chicken paired with spiced okra and jasmine rice. Marcus tasted it and smiled, nodding with approval. "This," he said, "is extraordinary. You've managed to combine tradition and innovation in a way that's entirely your own. Keep pushing yourself, Riley. You're going to do great things." Riley's face lit up with pride, and from that moment, their confidence grew. As Roots and Wings Academy thrived, Marcus received invitations to collaborate on projects that extended his reach even further. A prominent publisher approached him with the idea of writing a cookbook, and after months of pouring his heart into the project, Roots and Wings, a culinary journey was born. The book combined recipes, personal anecdotes, and cultural history, resonating with readers around the world. The book's success led to speaking engagements, where Marcus shared his story with audiences who were moved by his resilience and vision. He often ended his talks with a powerful message. Food is more than sustenance, it's connection, it's history, and it's hope. No matter where you start, you can always create something beautiful. One sunny morning, Marcus received an envelope in the mail bearing the logo of the prestigious James Beard Foundation. Inside was a letter notifying him that he had been nominated for the Outstanding Restaurateur Award. Overwhelmed, Marcus showed the letter to Angela, who threw her arms around him in celebration. "You've earned this, Marcus," she said, tears in her eyes. "This is just the beginning." On the night of the ceremony, Marcus stood on stage holding the award, his heart full as he looked out at the audience. "This honor isn't just mine," he said, his voice steady. "It belongs to everyone who believed in me, who stood by me, and who shared their table with me. It belongs to my family, my team, and the community that made this dream possible." Thank you. One evening, as Marcus closed up Roots and Wings, he found himself reflecting on how far he'd come. The restaurant was thriving, the Academy was shaping the next generation of chefs, and the partnerships he'd built had created a ripple effect throughout the industry. Just as he turned off the lights, a figure appeared at the door. It was Mr. Langford, the man who had once dismissed Marcus's talent at Le Grand Epicurean. He looked older, wearier, but there was humility in his eyes. "Chef Hayes," Langford began hesitantly, "I don't know if you'll even want to hear this, but I owe you an apology. I was wrong. About you, about everything." Marcus studied him for a moment before extending his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Langford. It takes courage to admit that. We've all made mistakes, but what matters is what we do moving forward." Langford nodded, his expression softening. "If there's ever anything I can do to help, please don't hesitate to ask." Marcus smiled. "I'll keep that in mind. Take care, Mr. Langford." As the door closed behind Langford, Marcus felt a profound sense of peace. His journey had been filled with challenges, but it had led to something far greater than he'd ever imagined. He had not only built a career, he had built a legacy. Months after Marcus's encounter with Mr. Langford, the legacy of Roots and Wings continued to flourish. The restaurant, academy, and cookbook had cemented Marcus's reputation as a transformative figure in the culinary world. However, Marcus wasn't content to rest on his laurels. He believed there was still more work to be done to make the culinary world more inclusive and accessible. Inspired by the success of the Academy, Marcus launched the Roots and Wings Fellowship Program. The initiative provided scholarships and mentorship opportunities for aspiring chefs who faced barriers to entry into the industry. With help from partners like Evelyn Wright and Mr. Huxley, the program offered hands-on training, internships at top restaurants, and financial support for culinary education. One of the fellowship's first recipients, Amara, was a single mother with a dream of becoming a pastry chef. Amara's talent shone brightly, but she had struggled to find opportunities that aligned with her responsibilities as a parent. Through the fellowship, she received a scholarship to attend a prestigious pastry school and mentorship from Tom, the pastry chef at Roots and Wings. At the end of the fellowship, Amara presented a dessert she called Resilience, a layered millefeuille with flavors inspired by her journey. The dish earned her a standing ovation during a showcase event, and Marcus couldn't have been prouder. As Roots and Wings gained national attention, Marcus began traveling to collaborate with chefs across the country. His mission was to celebrate the diversity of American cuisine and highlight the untold stories behind regional dishes. These collaborations often resulted in pop-up events where chefs shared their culture and culinary traditions with eager audiences. One memorable collaboration was with Chef Elena Rivera, a Mexican-American chef who specialized in ancestral cuisine. Together, they hosted an event called Flavors of Our Ancestors, which combined Marcus's Southern roots with Elena's rich Mexican heritage. Dishes like smoked brisket tamales and sweet potato churros became instant crowd favorites, and the event sparked conversations about the shared history of food across cultures. On a rainy afternoon, Marcus returned to the Roots and Wings Academy to surprise the students during their weekly mentorship meeting. As he entered the bustling kitchen, he was greeted with cheers and applause. "Chef Marcus," Riley called out, their excitement palpable. "We've been working on a surprise for you." The students presented Marcus with a collaborative dish they had created, a fusion of their collective backgrounds and culinary inspirations. The dish, called Unity on a Plate, featured jerk-seasoned salmon, creamy grits, and a bright chimichurri sauce. As Marcus tasted it, he couldn't hide his pride. "This," he said, setting down his fork, "is everything I hoped this academy would be. You've taken your roots, combined them with courage and creativity, and made something extraordinary. Keep going, all of you." As Roots and Wings expanded, Marcus remained committed to his hometown of Savannah. He organized community events like free cooking workshops, food donation drives, and partnerships with local farmers. One particularly impactful event was the Harvest Dinner, a pay-what-you-can feast that brought together people from all walks of life to share a meal under twinkling lights strung across the town square. During the dinner, Marcus took the stage to address the crowd. "Food has the power to bring us together," he said, his voice resonating with emotion. "No matter our differences, we all deserve a seat at the table. Thank you for letting me share this journey with you." The event raised enough money to fund several community initiatives, including a garden-to-table program that taught kids how to grow and cook their own food. One morning, Angela handed Marcus an envelope bearing the seal of the mayor's office. Inside was an invitation to a special ceremony, honoring Marcus for his contributions to Savannah's cultural and culinary landscape. On the day of the ceremony, Marcus stood in front of a crowd gathered at City Hall, the mayor's voice echoing over the sound system. "Marcus Hayes is not just a chef," the mayor declared. "He's a trailblazer, a mentor, and a unifier. Through his work, he has transformed not only our city but the lives of countless individuals. It is my honor to declare today Marcus Hayes Day in Savannah." As the crowd erupted into applause, Marcus stood humbled, Angela at his side. He took the microphone, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "This city raised me," he began. "It's where I found my passion and my purpose. Everything I do is a reflection of the love and support I've received from this community. Thank you for believing in me." Later that evening, Marcus and Angela sat on the porch of their home, enjoying the quiet after the whirlwind of the day. Marcus gazed at the stars, his heart full. "You know," he said, turning to Angela, "none of this would have been possible without you. You've been my rock through everything." Angela squeezed his hand, her smile warm. "And you've been mine, Marcus, watching you turn your struggles into something so beautiful. It's been the greatest privilege of my life." As they sat together, the sounds of laughter and music from Roots and Wings drifted through the night. Marcus knew that the journey wasn't over, but for the first time he felt a deep sense of peace. As Roots and Wings continued to thrive, Marcus began receiving offers to expand the restaurant to other cities. At first he hesitated, worried that growing too quickly might compromise the personal touch and community-centered ethos he had worked so hard to build. Angela encouraged him, saying, "If anyone can find a way to bring people together on a larger scale while staying true to their values, it's you." Inspired, Marcus devised a plan. Each new Roots and Wings location would partner with local farmers, artisans, and culinary talents to reflect the unique character of its community. These locations wouldn't just replicate the Savannah restaurant, they would celebrate the diversity of food and culture in their respective cities. The first expansion opened in Charleston, South Carolina, followed by locations in Atlanta and New Orleans. Each restaurant brought something new to the Roots and Wings family: a low-country seafood boil in Charleston, peach cobbler beignets in Atlanta, and a Creole-spiced gumbo in New Orleans. The community-first approach paid off. Each opening was met with overwhelming support, with lines of eager diners stretching down the block. Local chefs who had partnered with Marcus felt empowered to share their own stories through food, creating a ripple effect of inspiration. One evening, as Marcus sorted through mail in his office, he came across a letter with no return address. The handwriting was formal but shaky, and the contents left Marcus speechless. "Dear Marcus," it began, "I owe you more than an apology. You showed me what leadership should look like: kind, inclusive, and unyielding in its principles. Watching your success has been humbling, but it has also been a lesson I will carry for the rest of my days. Thank you for showing me the path I failed to take. Sincerely, Arthur Langford." Marcus set the letter down, his emotions swirling. He shared it with Angela, who smiled knowingly. "You've touched lives in ways you may never fully understand, Marcus," she said. "Even the ones who tried to hold you back." Back at the Roots and Wings Academy, the program's reputation had grown, attracting students from across the country. Many graduates went on to open their own restaurants or become leaders in the culinary world, each carrying the values they had learned under Marcus's mentorship. One day, Marcus decided to surprise his team by inviting a special guest instructor, Chef Amara, a former fellowship recipient who had risen to fame for her innovative desserts. Amara shared her journey with the students, her voice brimming with gratitude. "When I started at the academy," she said, "I didn't believe I could succeed, but Marcus taught me that my story mattered, that my flavors mattered. Now I'm here to tell you the same thing. Your dreams are valid, and your voice belongs in this industry." The students hung on her every word, inspired by her resilience and success. Marcus watched from the back of the room, his heart swelling with pride. As Marcus's influence spread, he was invited to participate in an international culinary exchange program aimed at fostering cultural understanding through food. Marcus eagerly accepted, viewing it as an opportunity to learn and grow while sharing the values of Roots and Wings. The program took him to countries like Nigeria, where he worked alongside chefs to explore the deep connections between African and Southern cuisine. Together, they created dishes that celebrated the shared heritage of their ancestors, like a smoky jollof rice paired with crispy fried chicken. In Japan, Marcus collaborated with local chefs to create a Southern-inspired ramen, blending a hearty chicken broth with collard greens and cornbread croutons. The dish became a surprise hit, sparking conversations about how flavors could transcend borders. The experience left Marcus deeply moved. "Food has no boundaries," he told a gathering of chefs at the program's closing ceremony. "It's a universal language that speaks to our shared humanity." As Marcus returned home from his travels, he began to think about the future of Roots and Wings. Though he was far from retiring, he wanted to ensure the values he had built his career on would endure long after he was gone. He called a meeting with Angela, Evelyn Wright, Mr. Huxley, and his core team to discuss his vision. "I want Roots and Wings to be more than just a restaurant or a brand," he said. "I want it to be a legacy that continues to uplift, inspire, and empower." Together, they devised a plan to establish the Roots and Wings Foundation. The foundation would fund scholarships, support struggling restaurants, and provide grants to culinary projects that celebrated diversity and community. Years later, Marcus stood on the stage of the Roots and Wings Academy during its 10th anniversary celebration. The auditorium was packed with students, alumni, and supporters, all eager to celebrate the milestone. As Marcus spoke, he reflected on his journey. "When I was at my lowest, I never imagined that something so beautiful could come from my pain. But every challenge I faced led me here, to this moment, with all of you. Thank you for being part of this story." The crowd rose to their feet, applauding and cheering as Marcus stepped back, tears glistening in his eyes. He knew that the journey wasn't just his. It belonged to everyone who had ever believed in the power of food to heal, connect, and inspire. After the anniversary celebration at the Roots and Wings Academy, Marcus returned home late that night, the applause from the crowd still echoing in his mind. He sat on the porch, a cup of tea in his hands, and gazed up at the stars. Angela joined him, wrapping a blanket around both of their shoulders. "You've built something extraordinary," Angela said softly, leaning into him. "Do you ever stop to think about how many lives you've touched?" Marcus chuckled, shaking his head. "It's hard to wrap my mind around sometimes. I started this journey just wanting to cook, to share my love for food. I never imagined it would lead to this." Angela took his hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "That's because your love for cooking wasn't just about the food. It's always been about people, about creating connections. That's why Roots and Wings is so much more than a restaurant." Marcus nodded, the warmth of her words settling into his chest. He thought about the countless faces he had encountered over the years, the young chefs he had mentored, the guests whose lives he had unknowingly impacted, and even the skeptics who had come to see him in a new light. As the years passed, Marcus found himself thinking more about the importance of family. His own children, Miles and Lila, were growing up fast, and Marcus wanted them to understand the values that had shaped his journey. Though still young, both children were already showing an interest in cooking. One Saturday morning, Marcus decided to host a family cooking day. The kitchen buzzed with laughter as Miles, determined to outdo his father, attempted to make a towering stack of waffles. Meanwhile, Lila meticulously decorated cupcakes, her artistic flair shining through. "Dad, do you think we'll ever be as good as you?" Miles asked, his face dusted with flour. Marcus knelt down to meet his son's eyes. "You'll be better than me, Miles. Both of you will. And you'll find your own paths, whether it's in the kitchen or somewhere else. The important thing is to do what you love, and to do it with heart." Angela watched from the doorway, a proud smile on her face as she captured the moment with her phone. It was these small, quiet moments that reminded Marcus of what truly mattered, the love and support of his family. One day, Marcus received an unexpected invitation from a prestigious culinary organization. They wanted him to compete on a televised global cooking competition, something he had never considered before. At first, Marcus was hesitant. He had built his reputation as a mentor and leader, not as a competitive chef. Angela, however, encouraged him to step out of his comfort zone. "You've spent so much time helping others shine, Marcus," she said. "Maybe it's time for the world to see what you can do." With her encouragement, Marcus agreed to join the competition. It was a high-stakes challenge featuring chefs from around the world, each bringing their own unique styles and techniques to the table. The pressure was intense, but Marcus thrived under it, drawing on his years of experience and the stories behind his dishes. In one memorable round, Marcus created a dish inspired by his grandmother's gumbo, but with a modern twist, using smoked duck and a delicate saffron-infused broth. The judges were captivated, not just by the flavors, but by the heart behind the dish. "This isn't just food," one judge said. "This is a story, and it's a story we're lucky to experience." Shortly after the competition aired, Marcus received a surprise visitor at Roots and Wings. Mrs. Goldstein, one of his earliest supporters from Le Grand Epicurean, walked into the restaurant with her family. Though older now, her energy was as vibrant as ever. "Marcus, my dear boy," she exclaimed, embracing him warmly. We've been following your journey all these years, and I just had to come see what all the fuss was about. Marcus seated her at the best table in the house and personally prepared her meal, a special menu inspired by his earliest days as a chef. When Mrs. Goldstein tasted the food, tears filled her eyes. "You've always had the talent," she said, "but now you've found your voice. I'm so proud of you." Her words reminded Marcus of the many people who had believed in him long before his success. He made a mental note to send her flowers the next day, as a token of his gratitude. With roots and wings thriving across the United States, Marcus began exploring the possibility of opening international locations. He traveled to cities like Cape Town, Paris, and São Paulo, immersing himself in their culinary traditions and meeting chefs who shared his passion for storytelling through food. In Cape Town, he collaborated with a local chef to create a dish combining Southern barbecue techniques with South African flavors, resulting in a braai-inspired smoked brisket served with chakalaka. In Paris, he hosted a pop-up dinner blending French pastry techniques with Southern comfort flavors, introducing guests to peach cobbler millefeuille. These international ventures not only expanded Marcus's reach, but also deepened his appreciation for the global connections forged through food. One evening, Marcus received a call that left him speechless. He had been chosen to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award at a prestigious culinary gala. The award recognized not only his contributions to the culinary world, but also his dedication to mentorship, inclusivity, and community building. The night of the gala, Marcus stood on stage, the weight of the moment sinking in. As he looked out at the crowd, filled with family, friends, and colleagues, he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "This award isn't just for me," he said, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "It's for every person who's shared a meal, a story, or a dream with me. It's for my family, my mentors, and my team. And it's for the next generation of chefs who will continue to push the boundaries of what's possible." The crowd erupted into applause, a standing ovation that seemed to last forever. Angela and the children joined him on stage, and Marcus held their hands tightly, knowing that this moment was the culmination of not just his hard work, but the love and support of everyone who had been part of his journey. As the years went on, Marcus continued to expand his vision. He started a podcast called At the Table, where he interviewed chefs, farmers, and food historians about the stories behind their work. The podcast quickly gained a devoted following, sparking conversations about food, culture, and community. He also began writing a memoir, weaving together the highs and lows of his journey with lessons for readers about resilience, forgiveness, and the importance of staying true to oneself. Despite his growing influence, Marcus remained grounded. Every week, he still worked in the kitchen at the original Roots and Wings, greeting guests and cooking with the same passion that had driven him from the start. One evening, as the restaurant hummed with activity, Marcus looked around at the smiling faces of his staff and guests. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that the seeds he had planted so many years ago had grown into something far greater than he could have imagined. "I think we've done something special here," Marcus said to Angela as they stood by the window watching the bustling dining room. Angela smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "No, Marcus, you've created something extraordinary." And with that, Marcus Hayes knew that his story, though far from over, had already left a lasting mark on the world. As Marcus continued his journey, Roots and Wings grew beyond being a restaurant, academy, or even a foundation. It became a movement. Across the country, restaurants inspired by Marcus's ethos began to pop up, led by chefs who had trained under him or been touched by his story. The idea of celebrating one's heritage while embracing innovation became a guiding principle in kitchens everywhere. Marcus took note of this growing trend and began organizing an annual event called the Flavors of Unity Festival. The festival brought chefs, farmers, and food enthusiasts together in Savannah for a week of collaboration, storytelling, and, of course, incredible food. The inaugural festival was held in Forsyth Park, under a canopy of lights strung between live oak trees. Stalls lined the paths, each one offering a unique dish that represented the chef's background. There was Ethiopian injera paired with Cajun shrimp, Vietnamese pho with Southern-style collard greens, and even desserts like spiced pecan baklava. Marcus walked through the festival, stopping to greet chefs and taste their creations. At one stall, he found Chef Elena Rivera, who had become a close collaborator over the years. She offered him a bite of her mole-drizzled brisket tacos. "What do you think?" Elena asked, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Marcus closed his eyes, savoring the smoky, sweet, and earthy flavors. "It's perfect," he said with a smile. "This is what the festival is all about, showing the world how food can bring us together." The event culminated in a massive community dinner, where hundreds of people shared a meal at a single, continuous table stretching across the park. Marcus stood to give a toast. "To everyone here tonight," he began, raising his glass. "Thank you for believing in the power of food to unite us. Each of you brings something unique to the table, and that's what makes this moment so special. Here's to more meals, more stories, and more connections." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Marcus sat down, his heart full as he shared the meal with Angela, Miles, Lila, and the chefs who had become his extended family. As the years went on, Marcus began to think about the future of his work. He had built something incredible, but he knew that for it to last, he needed to empower others to carry the torch. At the academy, Marcus started a leadership program designed to identify students with the potential to become mentors themselves. Riley, now an accomplished chef in their own right, returned to the academy as an instructor, teaching classes on creativity and resilience in the kitchen. One evening, Marcus called a meeting with his senior team at Roots and Wings. Around the table sat Mr. Huxley, Riley, Amara, and Angela. He took a deep breath before speaking. "It's time for me to step back from the day-to-day operations," Marcus said, his voice steady but emotional. "I want to focus on mentoring, writing, and spending more time with my family. But I know this legacy is in good hands." Riley, who had always seen Marcus as a role model, looked at him with wide eyes. "Chef Marcus, no one can fill your shoes." Marcus smiled warmly. "You don't need to fill my shoes, Riley. You just need to walk your own path. And I have no doubt you'll lead with the same heart and integrity that have brought us this far." The room fell quiet as his words sank in. Then Mr. Huxley spoke up, his voice filled with conviction. "You've given us the tools, Marcus. Now it's our turn to honor what you've built." On his last official day as head chef at Roots and Wings, Marcus worked the line one final time. He prepared dishes with the same care and attention to detail that had defined his career, savoring every moment in the kitchen. As the evening wound down, his staff surprised him with a cake decorated with edible roots and wings. "Thank you for believing in us," Riley said, their voice trembling with emotion. "You've changed our lives, Chef." Marcus's heart swelled as he cut the cake, surrounded by the people who had become his family. "You've changed mine too," he said simply. That night, as he walked out of the restaurant for the last time as its leader, Marcus turned back for a moment, taking in the warm glow of the lights and the laughter of the staff. He felt no sadness, only pride and gratitude for the journey. In the months that followed, Marcus poured himself into writing his memoir, titled From the Kitchen to the World, A Chef's Journey of Resilience and Connection. The book chronicled not just his rise to success, but the lessons he had learned along the way. The memoir became a bestseller, with readers praising its raw honesty and inspiring message. In interviews, Marcus often emphasized the importance of community, humility, and the courage to pursue one's dreams. "Your story matters," he said during one televised interview. "No matter where you start or what challenges you face, you have the power to create something meaningful." Years later, Marcus and Angela sat on their porch, watching as Miles and Lila, now adults, prepared a family meal in the kitchen. The laughter and clatter of pots reminded Marcus of the early days of Roots and Wings, when the dream was still taking shape. "Do you think they'll carry it on?" Angela asked, nodding toward their children. Marcus smiled, his heart brimming with pride. "Whether they run the restaurants or find their own passions, I know they'll carry the values forward. That's all I could ever hope for. As Marcus reflected on his life and career, he often returned to a single idea. Food had given him more than just a livelihood. It had given him a purpose, a voice, and a way to connect with the world. He shared this message in a final interview, filmed in the original Roots and Wings kitchen. Looking directly into the camera, he said, "Food is more than ingredients on a plate. It's a bridge between people, a way to honor our past and build our future. No matter where life takes you, always remember your roots keep you grounded and your wings let you soar." As the camera panned out, showing Marcus surrounded by the team and family he had built, the screen faded to black, leaving viewers with a simple, powerful message: find your roots, spread your wings,